दृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्मोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठम् अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे। नमः श्री परमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रियब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ I welcome you all to the 29th class of the Fundamentals of Vedanta series. We are in the last stretch of our marathon discussion on how an adhikari becomes an adhikari. So we are in the last lap now. So as we said that an adhikari becomes an adhikari by gaining these fourfold qualifications. Sadhana chatushtaya sampattihi, which is vivekaha, vairagyam, shamadhi shatka sampattihi, and mumukshutvam. Now, why are these qualifications important? So we'll backtrack a bit to our past discussion. And we said that a jivaha without these qualifications is turbulently ignorant. And when the jivaha is turbulently ignorant, then the pramana, when it's employed during shravanam, it is incapable of doing its job. Because this turbulence is an obstacle. Just like the eyes cannot see an object, the pramana of vision, the instrument of vision is there. But the eye is incapable of seeing an object clearly, seeing a color clearly, if there is a cataract. And therefore, the obstruction needs to be removed. And this turbulence is an obstruction. And therefore, the pramana, which are the words of Vedanta employed by the Guru, they cannot work when the mind is turbulent. So what is it that causes this turbulence? He said there are two factors. One is malaha and the other is vikshepaha. Malaha, malam, is of the nature of samskara, as we saw, past impressions. And they cause the one who has the mala to indulge in nishiddha karmas, to get attracted to sense objects, etc. Therefore, this malam has to be neutralized, and it is neutralized using karma yoga. And the other obstacle is vikshepaha. Vikshepaha is chitta chanchalyam, a mind that is jumping around constantly, not single-pointed, basically. And this vikshepaha is tackled using Upasana yoga. So in the last class, we finished the discussion on Karma Yoga. What is Karma Yoga? We saw it is proper action coupled with proper attitudes. What is proper action? We said it's action in keeping with Samanya and Vishesha Dharma of the individual concerned. And in combination with efficacious actions. What are efficacious actions? We classified actions as threefold. One is Sattvika Karma, Rajasa Karma, and Tamasa Karma. Sattvika karmas are the most efficacious actions because they don't originate from the ragas and dveshas of the individual. In fact, those actions they make the individual a contributor rather than a consumer. Whereas Rajasa karmas originate from the ragas and dveshas of the individual, and so therefore there is this consumer that is evident in those actions. The tamasa karmas, on the other hand, are the nishiddha karmas, the prohibited action that should not be done. So the sattvika karmas are the most efficacious. The rajasa karmas, they have greater material benefit and lesser spiritual benefit compared to the sattvika karmas. We saw the Pancha Mahayajnas as being an example of the most efficacious sattvika karmas. They really bring out the contributor in the individual, and they have the maximum spiritual efficacy in terms of loosening the hold of the ragas and dveshas and generating a certain spiritual punya. So we saw the benefits of Karma Yoga, that is basically loosening the hold of the ragas and dveshas. And how does it happen? Firstly, during the performance of the actions, the ragas and dveshas become subservient to Ishvaraha, who is manifest as Dharma. So they become subservient to Dharma. And when performing the actions, one has the attitude of Ishwar Arpana Buddhihi. And what kind of actions can be offered to Ishvara? Those actions that are in keeping with Dharma are the ones that can be offered to Ishvara, who is manifest as Dharma. So as we said, Ishvara is manifest as Samanya Dharma in every individual. Every individual knows through common sense that this is the way I should be acting when I act towards somebody else, because I know how I want to be treated. I should be treating everybody in the same manner as I want myself to be treated. So this is the Samanya Dharma. We say Ishvara is manifest as this Samanya Dharma. And then Ishvara has put me in a certain position which entails certain Vishesha Dharmas. That position entails certain Vishesha Dharmas. And therefore, the right action to be done in any given situation, that is also manifest Ishvara. What is the right action to be done is also manifest Ishvara. The Ishvara is manifest both as Samanya and Vishesha Dharma. And when my actions are in keeping with both Samanya and Vishesha Dharma, then they become an offering to Ishvara, who is manifest as Dharma. Swakarmana tam abhyarchya. The arch dhatu, archana. I do archana with flowers. So similarly, I can do archana to Ishvara with my right actions. This is Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. And then there is Prasada Buddhi. After the action has been done, the Karma Yogi doesn't worry about the result. Says, whatever Ishvara is willing to give, I will accept that. I have a certain preference, no doubt, but I am willing to accept whatever Ishvara gives me in the form of prasad. Therefore, the ragas and dveshas become subservient to prasada buddhi. Therefore, both at the time of performance of action, raga dveshas become subservient to dharma, and at the time of experiencing the result, the raga dveshas become subservient to prasada buddhi. And therefore, there is a certain distancing that is created from one's own ragas and dveshas. This is basically the loosening of the hold of the ragas and dveshas. Now, what happens as a result of this? Basically, all mental disturbances, there's some raga or dvesha behind it. Therefore, there is a decrease in negative reactions. This is what Swamiji calls FIR reduction. The frequency of negative reactions come down. And when a negative reaction happens, its intensity also comes down. And if a negative reaction happens, then one is able to bounce back from it quicker. The recovery period from a negative reaction also comes down. So this is FIR reduction. And then there is an increase in triple C, calmness, because there is samatvam. The sameness of attitude with regards to experiences, that is the samatvam. There is calmness, there is cheerfulness. Because when I am offering my actions to Ishvaraha, then at that point, there is a certain excellence that one incorporates into the action. I am offering it to Ishvaraha. And one does it cheerfully also without grumbling, etc. So there's an increase in cheerfulness also. Increase in calmness, cheerfulness, and confidence. I am praying to Ishvara that I get the internal strength to take whatever result that comes as prasada. So this worry, etc., as we said, associated is not there. Therefore, there's an increase in confidence also. And as a result, the mind is no longer a reacting mind. It becomes a learning mind. And when one is constantly learning from one's experiences, then sooner or later one will come to see that all these accomplishments in the field of artha, kamaha, and dharmaha, they have these three doshas. Dukkha mishritatvam, they are mixed with sorrow. Atriptikaratvam, they leave me unfulfilled, apurnaha. And bandhakatvam, they make me more and more dependent upon the world, which is inherently uncontrollable, unpredictable, and unsustainable. So this is the discovery of the problem of samsara. The endless struggle, the discovery that the struggle to gain purnatvam out of the first three purusharthas is never ending. This discovery is the discovery of the problem of samsara, and such a person who has led a life of karma yoga will sooner or later discover this. And when that happens, he begins to question, now I am seeking some peace, security, fulfillment, but nothing is lasting. Is there a way to gain the lasting peace, security, and happiness? And that is the point at which we discuss this parikshalokan karmachitan. Brahmanah nirvedamayat nasti akrita kritena tad vijnanartham sa gurumeva bhigachet samitpanihi shrotriyam brahmanishtam. So this person now gets a spiritual inclination. He now begins to search for this something more that he has not earlier directed his efforts towards. He gets the spiritual inclination, not just this, he said he gets the spiritual capability also. Just one moment, I'll close the window here because there's some disturbing sound. I'm not sure if you are hearing it. Just one moment. We said that you're able to hear me all right. We said that he not only gets the spiritual inclination, but he gets the spiritual capability also. So once he sees that whatever he is getting from the world is anitya, everything is anitya, then he says that leaning on this is not a very wise idea. And therefore, I must lean on that which is the nitya vastu. Therefore, he gets the nitya vastu vivekaha. And then this not longing for this anitya vastu, not emotionally leaning on the anitya vastu. So he has anyway disassociated himself from the fruits, from the karma phala. Karma phala tyaga he has done because he says, I am not the karma phala hetu, I am only the karma hetu. So he has obtained this dissociation from the karma phala. So now he realizes that he should not be leaning for his happiness, peace, security, and happiness on the karma phala. Therefore, he gets this vairagyam also. And then he says, I should be leaning on the nitya vastu for my peace, security, and happiness. This is mumukshutva. Therefore, he starts to get this spiritual capability also. And the third thing we said is he gets the spiritual opportunity also because he has done all these efficacious karmas. He continues to do these efficacious karmas, Pancha Mahayagya, for example. And that generates this certain spiritual punyam. And that spiritual punyam then provides the spiritual opportunity. As we said, that if there is past punyam, then whatever one is trying to accomplish, that becomes easier. It is like trying to row in a river when the river's flow is in the same direction as my rowing. Therefore, he puts in some effort towards his spiritual progress, and he opportunities open up for him. If he doesn't have a guru, he finds a guru. And if he was incapable of doing Shravanam for some reason, he finds that Shravanam begins to happen. Mananam begins to happen. And therefore, this spiritual opportunity makes him progress spiritually also. He gets the spiritual inclination, the spiritual capability, and the spiritual opportunity all through the life of Karma Yoga. We talked about Vivekaha, we talked about Vairagyam and Mumukshutva. Then what about the Shamadhi Shatka Sampattihi? Shamaha, Mano Nigraha, Damaha, Chakshuradi Bahyendriya Nigraha, Uparama is maintenance of this state of withdrawal. Bahya analambana vritti. Maintenance of that is uparama. And then samadhanam chittaikagrata. Single pointedness of the mind. There are these four in one group. And there is Shraddha and Titiksha. Chitoshna Sukhadukhadi Sahishnutvam. We said this Titiksha, let us take that first. The means for that are included in the efficacious karmas because we said yajna, danam, and tapah. This tapaha includes austerities and disciplines. Therefore, when one leads a life that includes these austerities and disciplines, then one begins to get the titiksha also. The fact that this person has come to a life of karma yoga, that would not have been possible without some shraddha to begin with, because he has come to the Veda Purva. So he is giving the benefit of doubt. But when he lives a life of karma yoga, that shraddha too increases. And then all of this pramana, vichara, etc. that we did, that too is a big factor in increasing the shraddha, in making the shraddha firmer. Then we are left with the other four: shamaha, dhamaha, uparamaha, and titiksha and samadhana. So how does one gain these? Shamaha is basically discipline, management of the mind. Dhamaha is discipline, management of the sense organs. Uparama is maintenance of the withdrawn state of mind so that it can be focused on something else. And samadhanam is the single pointedness of the mind, focusing it on the task that I want it to be focused on for a length of time. So these four, we say, requires Upasana yoga. This is where Upasana yoga comes into the picture. And as we said, this vikshepaha, which is the mind that is all over the place, that is addressed using Upasana yoga. So now we enter today's topic, which is the final topic in how an adhikari becomes an adhikari. Upasana means meditation. So before we get into the specifics of Upasana, we have to be clear about what the role of meditation in Vedanta is. Because this is a source of enormous confusion. People spend hours meditating, but they don't have a clear idea of what they are trying to accomplish through the meditation. So one should know what meditation is for and also what meditation is not for. Both terms one has to have clarity. So this is the first part of the discussion that we will be doing today. So what we will start with, what is meditation not for? Vedanta is very clear that meditation is not for moksha. Meditation is not for liberation. Why? Because in the vision of Vedanta, moksha is already accomplished. Moksha is my own nature. Purnatvam is my own nature. So just as the 10th man was already the 10th man, the 10th man never really gained the 10th man. What the 10th man understood was that I don't need to gain the 10th man because I am the 10th man. So similarly, one doesn't really gain any moksha. Any moksha that is gained will be lost. Therefore, meditation is not for moksha. As we said, moksha is eka sadhana sadhyam. Moksha is only accomplished through one means, which is jnanam. So meditation is not for moksha. The next question is meditation for jnanam then? Is meditation for gaining the knowledge that tells me that moksha is my own nature? We say no. Meditation is also not for jnanam. Why? Because jnanam is also eka sadhana sadhyam. Jnanam is also gained through only one means, which is through an appropriate pramana that is adequately employed. And the pramana here are the words of Vedanta. The words of Vedanta are employed during Shravanam. So this jnanam is gained during Shravanam when the pramanam is employed with the help of a guru. One does Vedanta Vichara. So meditation is not for jnanam also. Then the next question is that is then meditation for some special experience, for some extraordinary experience or mystic experience? We say that any experience is an experience of the objective world only. We have ordinary experiences of the objective world. For example, I see that there is this screen in front of me, there's a wall behind it. This air is touching my skin. These are all ordinary experiences that everybody has. One sees what is in front of me. These experiences come and go. These are ordinary experiences. What are they? They inform me about the objective world. And then there can be extraordinary experiences also. Vedanta doesn't say that there are no extraordinary experiences. So if one sits in meditation, one may see different things. One may see lights, for example, or one may see places that are remote that one is not able to see right now. But we say that any experience, whether it is ordinary or extraordinary, is only about the objective world, about objects. Drishyam, never the drik. The subject never becomes an object. Drigeva natu drishyate. Subject is always the subject, it never becomes an object. And therefore, even if one has an extraordinary experience of the objective world, it leaves one's self-ignorance intact. If one was self-ignorant, one will continue to remain self-ignorant even after an extraordinary experience, because one can never see the subject, who the subject is. The extraordinary experience or an ordinary experience, both of them can never reveal the nature of the subject. Therefore, meditation is not for any extraordinary experience either. Then one may ask, so is it to gain some special powers? So the Shastras talk about siddhis. There are special powers. For example, the ability to read another person's thoughts, or the ability to foretell the future, or the ability to cure somebody else. Such extraordinary powers are possible. The Shastras don't deny that. But the Shastras give a warning that the pursuit of such siddhis can distract one from the pursuit of jnanam. A person who has such extraordinary powers, there may be a lot of people flocking around that person. Why? Because a majority of the people want artha and kama. And this person is capable of giving them something, perhaps by foretelling the future, or perhaps by curing something. But then the Shastras say that such a person who has such siddhis may not be a jnani. And therefore, such a person may very well continue to be within samsara. He himself may feel that I am lacking fulfillment, I need to seek something more. On the other hand, there may be this jnani, a person who's a jnani. And what the jnani can give, many people don't want it. Why? Because they have not yet come to the point where they see that this is what I am really looking for. But then this person is liberated from samsara. He is a jnani. But he may not have any special powers that can excite other people. And therefore, a siddha purusha, that is a person with siddhis, may not be a jnani. And a jnani may not have any special powers. For meditation in Vedanta is not meant for accomplishing any special powers also. In fact, this Vedantic texts warn that the pursuit of such siddhis can basically take one back into samsara, can keep one in samsara. So then one may ask, now whatever I was thinking of with regards to meditation, the benefits of meditation, you seem to have dismissed all of that. Then what is the role of this blessed meditation then? We say that in Vedanta, meditation has two very clear goals. The first one is preparing the mind for knowledge. Just as when a seed is planted in soil, in a certain soil, that soil needs to be prepared. For example, if the land is parched dry, they put a seed there. The seed just stays on the surface, nothing happens. It doesn't even penetrate the soil. On the other hand, if one tills the soil, makes it a bit fertile, puts the seed inside, then there is a good possibility that that seed sprouts. So similarly is the case with knowledge. Knowledge is like the seed. It requires the right conditions in the mind to sprout. Therefore, there is a certain kind of meditation that is meant to prepare the mind. So this is one type of meditation, and this is what is Upasana. It is a form of meditation that is meant to prepare the mind for knowledge. It is done before Shravanam, or it can also be done in conjunction with Shravanam. Then this type of meditation is followed by Shravanam. And if the mind has been well prepared, if the candidate has the qualifications, then the knowledge takes place during Shravanam. And then after the rise of knowledge, there is a second type of meditation. Which is no longer for preparing the mind, because that is Upasana. This meditation is meant for assimilating, for internalizing the knowledge that has been gained through Shravana. And this type of meditation is called Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana. So basically, there is a first type of meditation. It is for Jnana Yogyata Praptihi. It is for gaining the qualifications. As we said, Shama, Dhamma, Uparama, and Samadhana, those are qualifications, important qualifications. So, Jnana Yogyata Praptihi is the aim of Upasana. And then there is Shravanam, rise of Jnanam. And after the rise of Jnanam, then there is Nididhyasanam, which is for Jnana Nishtha Praptihi. It is for internalizing the knowledge that is already gained. For assimilating the knowledge that is already gained, that is called Jnana Nishtha Prapti. These are the two distinct roles of meditation. So with this background, we will get into what is Upasana. For now, we will not touch the topic of Nididhyasana. That will come later. But right now, our focus is what is Upasana. So the person who is doing the Upasana, we have to be careful that this person doesn't have the Jnanam yet of Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. So for him, he has this Bheda Drishtihi, where Ishvara is separate, I am separate. So the word Upasana is comprised of two parts, Upa and Asana. So Upa means near, and Asana means sitting or staying. So this word means sitting or staying near. So naturally the question arises, sitting or staying near what or near whom? We say sitting near Ishvaraha. For example, if one sits in a puja room or in a temple near Ishvara, so that can also be called Upasana, that is physical proximity to Ishvara. But then the person may be physically proximate to Ishvara, but his mind may be somewhere else. So we say this mental proximity is more important than physical proximity. The Upasana indicates the mental proximity to Ishvara. That means mentally dwelling on Ishvara or meditation on Ishvara. So that is the meaning of Upasana. Now, as we said, Upasana is preparatory meditation. Preparatory for what? Preparatory for Jnanam. But in order for this preparatory meditation to be successful, there is some preparation required even before that. There is a sort of preparation for the preparation. So there is preparation required even for this preparatory meditation. And what is that preparation? It is, we can discuss this preparation at three levels. One is lifestyle. One's lifestyle must be conducive to meditation. Number two are certain disciplines that one must follow for this meditation to be successful, to accomplish its purpose, for one to be even able to meditate. So lifestyle and certain disciplines. And finally, there are some steps involved in the meditation. Why is this important? Why is this preparation important? So let us take the example of a student who says that I have difficulty in multiplying 5-digit numbers. Now, if we look into why the student has difficulty, it is because the student hasn't memorized the tables from 2 to 9. He doesn't have in his mind. And then he has difficulty in even adding two single digit numbers because he doesn't understand this carry, what this carry is. So because he has not done the preparation required, he has not met the prerequisites required, he is having difficulty multiplying the 5-digit numbers. On the other hand, there is the other student, you give him these two 5-digit numbers and he finishes that in 2-3 minutes. Because he has the tables in his mind and he is able to do this single digit addition and all that. So we say that anything is easy or difficult only from the point of view of the person who is doing it. If the person has the required preparation, then it appears to be easy. On the other hand, if the person doesn't have the required preparation, the same thing that the other person finds easy, this person finds difficult. And therefore, even for Upasana, if the adequate preparation is there, then Upasana is not something difficult. If the preparation is not there, Upasana will appear to be difficult. And therefore, one has to look into these three aspects of the preparation for Upasana. So let us come to the lifestyle first. What should the lifestyle be? We say that the lifestyle must be one of karma yoga. We have only one mind. And the same mind is involved in day-to-day transactions. And the same mind has to be used for meditation also. If one is going through a lot of emotional turmoil, a lot of ups and downs in one's day-to-day transactions, then one will find it extremely difficult to meditate. Even in this preparatory meditation, Upasana will be difficult. Forget the second final meditation, which is Nididhyasana. A lot of the things we are talking about are common to Upasana and Nididhyasana. The lifestyle has to be such that one doesn't go through too much of this emotional turmoil, meaning that one has to have this samatvam. Samatvam is important in one's day-to-day transactions. As Swamiji points out, that in this Wimbledon final, there is a player who wins and there is that other guy loses. Now, both of them, Swamiji says, will not be able to sleep that night. Because this person who won is going through an emotional up. He'll mentally be replaying all those shots which turned the game in his favor and which the crowd applauded. On the other hand, this person who lost, he will be replaying all those shots in which that game turned against him and he said, I should not have done it. I should have played it a little differently. Perhaps I might have won. So that will keep repeating in his mind. Now imagine both of them trying to meditate. It's impossible. And therefore the samatvam, Ishwararpana buddhi, prasada buddhi, extremely important. So the lifestyle of karma yoga is a must. Then we come to the disciplines. And we say that there are two disciplines at two levels. In fact, there are three levels of the personality. One is kayikam, the physical level. The second is vachikam, the verbal speech level. And the third is manasam, the mental level. These three comprise my personality. One model of dividing the personality. So I want to focus on the manasam aspect of my personality that comes to the fore during my upasana. But for that, the other two layers have to cooperate. The physical level as well as the speech level, they have to be aligned with my goal of meditation. And only then we say then meditation will be possible. Because this body and mind are connected. For example, if the body has got some pains, etc., it becomes very hard to sit for a length of time. And if this body is feeling dull and lethargic, then also if one sits in meditation, one will feel very dull. So this physical body has to cooperate. And there are certain disciplines for that. And similarly, if my mind is agitated, the speech becomes agitated. If the speech is agitated, the mind becomes agitated. They are also connected. Therefore, there are certain disciplines at the speech level. And therefore, one has to follow some of these disciplines so that my mind doesn't get affected by these other two layers. So what are these disciplines? Now, the Kayika level, at the body level, one has to aim for some reasonable health. Reasonable physical health is important. See, physical health becomes an end in itself. If one is trying to gain physical health and exercise in order to flaunt the body, etc., in order to show off the body, then that is something that Shastra looks down upon. Physical health for the sake of being an end in itself, or for the sake of materialistic pleasures, etc., that is something the Shastra frowns upon. But on the other hand, if one wants to keep reasonable health, good physical health, for the sake of spiritual growth, then it's not an end in itself. It becomes a means for one's spiritual growth. Then this is something the Shastra encourages. Says then do what is required for your physical health. There are in fact Shanti mantras that ask for physical health for the sake of spiritual growth. And therefore, we have examples like Bhadram Karne Bhishrunayama Devaha Bhadram Pashyema Kshabhiryajatra Stirairangaihi. Sthiraihi angaihi. One asks for vigor in one's limbs, vigor in the body. Why? For the sake of spiritual growth. Apyayantu mama gani vak shrotramatho balam indriyani cha sarvani. Balam indriyani cha sarvani. One asks again for strength of the limbs, strength of the organs. Why? Because that is required even for spiritual growth. Therefore, one has to try to maintain a reasonable good health. And one of the important aspects here is moderation in everything. So this is where we want to look into that Bhagavad Gītā shloka. So we pull up the PDF that I had sent today. This is shloka number 17 of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gītā. That talks about moderation in various aspects. So I read that shloka. Yuktahara viharasya yuktacheshtasya karmasu yuktasvapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkhaha. So here Krishna is talking about this moderation in everything. Yuktahara. That means that one has to have moderation in one's food. One cannot eat too much, because if one eats too much, then that will make that eating, excess eating itself will create troubles. One will feel certain discomfort in the stomach, etc. And it makes one feel dull. On the other hand, one cannot eat too little also, because if one eats too little, then the body will be constantly hungry. If one sits for meditation, one might be thinking about food. And yukta viharasya means that one has to have moderation in one's relaxation, entertainments. So the mind cannot constantly be engaged in some strenuous task. There has to be some breaks, then one has to take. But on the other hand, one cannot just sit lazily around, because that also makes one dull, or just watching movies, etc., for a long time. All of that also doesn't give a conducive state of mind for liberation, for meditation. So there has to be some balance in terms of one's entertainment, relaxation, etc. And yukta cheshtasya karmasu, in terms of the effort that one puts in terms of one's work, that also has to have certain moderation. If one becomes a workaholic, one is spending 16 hours a day, 15 hours a day, etc., working, then also one will not have time. And even if when one gets the time, one will be so engaged, one's mind will still be preoccupied with work. So there has to be balance with regards to the work also. And yukta swapnava bodhasya, that means that one has to have adequate sleep also. Sometimes people say that I want to get up early in order to meditate, which is a very good thing. But then one has to also sleep earlier in order to get sufficient sleep. The amount of sleep one needs varies from person to person. But then if one doesn't get the quantity of sleep one needs, if one tries to sit for meditation, one will find oneself dozing off. So yukta swapnava bodhasya, when a person has all these in moderation, then yogo bhavati dukkhaha. Then this yoga, this type of dhyanam that one does, that becomes a source of peace. Dukkha. Dukkha means destructor of sorrow. We can take it as a source of peace. So there has to be moderation in all of these aspects. And then with regards to the diet itself, we touched upon it a little bit, or not eating too much or not eating too little. But even the diet plays an important role for a spiritual aspirant. And Krishna talks about it later also in the Bhagavad Gītā about what the Sattvika diet is. Because of the paucity of time, I'm not pulling up those shlokas for discussion here, but I'll just give a brief summary that the diet should ideally be a Sattvika diet. A Sattvika diet. Because we say that the gross portion of the diet goes towards nourishing the gross body. But the subtle part of the diet goes towards the subtle body, which we have not yet discussed, but basically that comprises of the mind. So if one wants a mind that is conducive for meditation, then one should go with a Sattvika diet. And what is a Sattvika diet? It is something that is freshly prepared. Freshly prepared. Not something that is stale, for example. Homemade food, ideally. Because when one eats out, if one sometimes it is unavoidable and those types of things are okay. But if one is doing excess of that, that is also not very conducive. Because one cannot be certain about what ingredients are going into it and how it is being prepared, etc. So ideally, it should be homemade food. And then no junk food. Because junk food has other effects. It can sooner or later affect one's health. And avoiding spicy food. Even to some extent, people who are serious about the spiritual path, they avoid things like onions and garlic, etc. Because even that is considered to be rajasic. And when that is present in food, then it tends to have an effect on the mind also. And ideally, food that one can offer to Ishvara as Naivedyam, ideally something that is offerable to Ishvara, that is what one offers to Ishvara and consumes. This is Sattvika food. And then exercise also plays an important role. And when it comes to exercise, we accept all the steps of Ashtanga Yoga. In fact, Ashtanga Yoga is an important darshana. Vedanta has got differences with regards to Ashtanga Yoga when it comes to the philosophy of Ashtanga Yoga, because it's a dualistic system. It is a Dvaitic system. It is not Advaita. So Vedanta disagrees with yoga when it comes to the philosophy. And similarly, the aim of yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. Vedanta doesn't accept that also. That is not the aim of Vedanta. It is not the cessation of thoughts, which yoga is aiming to do. But then when it comes to the parts of yoga that are not contradicting Vedanta, those parts Vedanta happily accepts as being wonderful sadhanas, wonderful means. Therefore, one of them are the asanas. So the doing Surya Namaskara, for example, in the morning, and performing, if one has a yoga routine that one does every day, and it's an excellent way to keep the body in a good condition for the sake of meditation. So these are the Kaika disciplines. And then when one comes to one's speech, then as we said, the speech and mind are also connected. An agitated speech tends to affect the mind also and tends to get carried over to one's meditation. Therefore, one has to follow certain disciplines with regards to speech also. And this is what the second shloka of the Bhagavad Gītā, which we had picked up. It is from the 15th shloka of the 17th chapter that talks about Vak Tapas, a discipline with regards to one's speech. What should speech be like? I will read that. It says, Anudvegakaram Vakyam Satyam Priya Hitanchayat Swadhyaya Abhyasananchaiva Vāṅmayam tapa uchyate. So anudvegakaram vakyam satyam priyahitanchayat. So anudvegakaram vakyam, there should be ahimsa in speech. It should not cause hurt to anybody. So I have to analyze what types of speech from others hurts me. And then I should avoid that same type of speech, like abusing somebody, blaming somebody, criticizing somebody, etc. If criticism has to be done, one has to do it very carefully under the right condition. Just as a doctor inflicts a certain wound for a good purpose. So if one has to criticize, one has to make one's intent clear that one is doing it for the benefit of somebody else, and one has to anesthetize the other person also to some extent, just as a doctor does it. So one has to do it very carefully, but the main intent is not to hurt. And Satyam, we have discussed this extensively, that I should be very sensitive to the damage that lying can cause. As we said, it causes all this conflict before the action is done. It causes conflict. Why? Because a conflict is there only if there is a half value. I cannot eliminate the half value for truth I have, because I want everybody else to speak the truth to me. So that half value is always there. But then if I don't have a fully assimilated value, then there'll be a conflict, because I may see some benefit in lying. And then there is conflict before the act, because there is a half value. And then after the act of lying is committed, then there is guilt. And then there is worry that I might get caught, etc. And then there is the split of the thinker and doer. We have discussed all of this in great detail. One has to be sensitive to that and totally avoid lying. So Satyam. And then it has to be Priya, Hitam, Priyam and Hitam. Priyam means it has to be something pleasant. One has to say auspicious things. The speech has to be not very loud, etc. Enough for the other person to hear. And then it has to be hitam. Hitam meaning there has to be something to be gained, ideally for both parties from it. It's like gossip. Gossip has no value to add, either to me or to the listener. In fact, it only perhaps complicates things in the world by spreading something that might be a false message also. So avoiding gossip and avoiding speaking about another person behind their back. So all of this is not hitam. So this kind of speech discipline has to be there. Swamiji says if one follows these filters, one will have very little to really talk about, because most of the things will get filtered out. Then what is left? The shloka says Swadhyaya Abhyasananchaya. So with the conserved speech energy, one can do Parayanam of the Shastra. One can reflect on what the Shastra is saying. In fact, the Shastra itself says Tat Chintanam, Tat Kathanam, Anyonyat Tat Prabodhanam. Prabodhanam. The Tat Chintanam, think about that which the Shastra is talking about. Tat Kathanam, talk about that which the Shastra is talking about. Anyonyat Tat Prabodhanam, and make each other help understand that which the Shastra is talking about. What is the Shastra talking about? The ultimate reality and moksha. Dharma also can be included. This is hitam. So this kind of speech discipline has to be there. And finally, we come to the steps before Upasana is done. So we talked about the lifestyle and the discipline. If the lifestyle and the discipline are not in place, then one will find it difficult to meditate. So now we come to the steps before the Upasana. The first step is asana. And these are all borrowed from Ashtanga Yoga. Vedanta happily borrows this. So we talk about asana. Asana means sitting in a proper posture. So ideally, sitting on the floor, where one can spread something on the floor. That is also called an asana. What is spread on the floor is also called an asana. And one can sit in a cross-legged position, for example, and with one's spine erect and neck erect. So this is proper asana. And where should the asana be taken? In a proper place. So ideally, for example, in one's puja room, and at a proper time also, where the ideal time is the sandhya time, either dawn or dusk, or both. And in fact, in Sandhya Vandanam, even the mid noon time is included when the sun is at the peak. All of these are considered to be proper times. And ideally, it is better to keep the same place and the same time, because once one starts to meditate, then the place itself begins to get a certain vibration, a good vibration. And that vibration is also conducive for one's own meditation. And when one does it at the same time every day, then one develops a certain Shubha Vasana. The Shubha Vasana begins to prompt one to meditate when that time arrives. So all of these come under asana and the place and time where when the asana is taken. The next is pranayama. So the breath is also connected to the mind. When the mind is agitated, the breath becomes agitated. And by controlling one's breath, one can also gain a certain degree of control over the mind. Vayurodhanat liyate manaha jalapakshivat rodha sadhanam, says the Upadeshasara. So Vayurodhanat, by the control of one's breath, liyate manaha, it is possible to control the mind. Jalapakshivat. If we take the example of a bird is fluttering all over the place. The moment a net is thrown over it, then it is constrained to to a certain area. Its wandering gets reduced. Shala pakshivat rodha sadhanam. Therefore, pranayama is an important step. Filling one's lungs with air, that is purakaha. And expelling the air out of the nostril, that is rechaka. And then there is kumbhakaha, where one may either hold the air inside the lungs, not inhale, exhale, but to hold the air. That is one kumbhaka, or one can have a kumbhaka after exhaling. That is another kumbhaka. So if one does this pranayama, then the mind also quietens down. And ideally, this is something that should be learned from a qualified yoga teacher. Both the asana aspects as well as the pranayama can be learned from a qualified yoga teacher. And if one follows this discipline, it's a very good step. And if one is not able to do pranayama for some reason, then even prana vikshanam, observance of one's breath, is an important step. Observing one's breath, sitting quietly, closing one's eyes, just observing the breath, that itself has an effect on the mind also. It quietens down the mind also. Then the next step is pratyahara. Pratyahara means withdrawing the sense organs from their sense objects. Therefore, one can close one's eyes and and try to withdraw the Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, and Gandhas. Withdraw the mind, withdraw the sense organs from the respective objects. But this is something that one has to follow even outside of the meditation also. In terms of not indulging the senses excessively in unnecessary things. Because the mind tends to take the color of what it is involved in. Just as if you take a cloth, you dip in certain colored water, the mind tends to take that color. So similarly, if one is, for example, watching horror movies, then after the horror movie, one will have a horrible time in the mind. That is not something a meditator generally indulges in. Or late night parties, etc., or parties where loud music, dancing, all of that, that tends to get carried over in the mind. So, a meditator has to be sensitive to these kinds of things and try not to indulge in these kinds of things that have a lingering effect on the mind. So, pratyahara includes all that also. So, not feeding the mind sensory garbage, basically. So this is pratyahara. And then we come to the definition of Upasana, because the next steps are all involving Upasana. Upasana is defined as Saguna Brahma Vishaya Manasa Vyaparaha. Saguna Brahma Vishaya Manasa Vyaparaha. Upasana is basically mental action. My karmendriyas are all withdrawn. It is not physical action, but it is mental action. Mental action in what regards? Saguna Brahma Vishaya, with regards to Ishvaraha. Saguna Brahma means Ishvaraha. So, Ishvara Vishaya Manasa Vyaparaha. So what can this be? It can be a Manasa Puja, for example. So one does physical puja, but that puja, when it becomes mental, then it becomes Upasana. So in fact, Sandhya Vandanam comes under Manasa Puja. It is a form of Upasana. It is a compulsory Nitya Karma. For those who are initiated into it, it is considered a compulsory Nitya Karma. For those who are not initiated into Sandhya Upasana, they can take up Manasa Puja, for example, where one can visualize one's Ishta Devata and then do all the steps involved, like offering flowers, offering Naivedyam, offering Deeparadhane, Namaskara, etc. All of that can be done as a Manasa Puja. Or it can also be a Manasa Parayanam, for example, chanting Sahasranama mentally. That can also be a Manasa Parayanam. It is also an Upasana. Or taking a mantra and doing the repetition of that mantra mentally, repeating that mantra is japa. So it becomes a japa dhyanam. That is also an upasana. So it can take all of these forms. This is what upasana involves. If we look at the next step after pratyahara, that is called dharana. Dharana. And dharana means a focus. A certain focus has to be invoked in the mind. For example, when I'm taking a camera, before I can take the video of the person, for example, that I'm focusing the camera on, I have to have that focus. That person has to be within that circle. That means all the other things other than the person or object whose video I am taking, all that has to be excluded. So that is pratyahara, excluding everything else. And dharana is bringing that object of meditation into focus. That is dharana. And the next step after dharana is dhyana. So this is the main step that we are concerned about. Dhyana. So this is basically retaining that focus on the object of meditation. Dharana is bringing that object into focus. Dhyana is basically retaining that focus. Just as I'm holding the camera on that person or object and then holding it still so that other things don't come into the picture, holding it on that person. So similarly, I have to try to maintain that mind on that object of meditation. So the nature of the mind is to move. But then the mind will move. But then dhyana is basically bringing the mind back, being alert that it has moved and bringing the mind back. So this is what that third shloka of the Bhagavad Gītā that I had said, that is what this is saying. Yato nischarati manaschañcalam asthiram tatas tato niyamyaitad atmanyeva vashannayet. So he is accounting for the possibility that the mind moves. Yato nischarati. Because of something the mind moves. Nischarati manas chanchalam asthiram. The mind's nature is chanchalatvam. The mind's nature is not being sthira. Tatastato niyamyaitad. Bring it back from that object to which it has moved. Bring it back. Atmanyeva vashamnayet. Bring it back under one's vasham, one's control. So basically, this is bringing it back. This is dhyana. So what is meditation? Meditation is actually bringing the mind back. Whenever it wanders, that is meditation. Dhyana. So in the worldly transactions, if I am doing some office work, mind is totally focused on what I am doing at that point. In this, I am focusing the mind on a particular Ishta Devata, for example, and my mind is revolving purely around that. So it is not that the thought cannot change at all. The thought may change, but the thought is centered on that object. For example, if I am doing a Manasa Puja, then at one point I am chanting the names of Ishvara. With each name, the mind is changing. The thought is changing, but the thoughts are centered on Ishvara. Saguna Brahma Vishaya Manasa Vyaparaha. So Vijatiya Vritti Rahita Sajatiya Vritti Pravaha is another way this is put. So the vrittis of the mind are Sajatiya Vritti Pravaha, meaning the vrittis are all centered around the object of meditation. The vrittis themselves can change. And when this dhyana is done, when one repeatedly brings it back, and after a while there is an absorption in that task. Well, the mind naturally gets absorbed in it. That absorption is what is called samadhi. So when we hear the word samadhi, we should not get scared. It is basically an absorption, and when the mind is absorbed, at that point there is no need to, this tug of war is no longer there, where the mind wanders and one brings it back, mind wanders, that brings it back. The tug of war has stopped basically. The mind is now absorbed in that. The vrittis may still be changing. If it is a manasa puja, then one is totally involved in it. That is what we mean by samadhi. Now, there are other kinds of samadhis that we also talk about, that Vedanta, some of which Vedanta accepts and some of which Vedanta doesn't encourage or doesn't see as a necessity. We will discuss those parts later when we come to Nididhyasana. So this is basically Upasana. Now, what are the benefits of doing this? So Upasana can be done as Sakama Karma, where one does it because one has a certain certain raga dvesha or certain benefit that one wants to attain in the realm of artha kama. So one may do upasanas for the sake of that also. The Shastra doesn't prohibit that. A religious materialist is allowed to do that. Then we say that the punyam that one gets out of upasana is a material punyam, and that will give a certain material benefit. But as a spiritual seeker, that is not what we are interested in. What one is interested in is chitta shuddhi, jnana yogyata. And therefore, one takes a sankalpa before the upasana that I am doing it only for the sake of chitta shuddhi, jnana vairagya siddhyartham. So when one takes such a sankalpa, then it becomes a nishkama karma. And the nishkama karma generates a certain powerful spiritual punyam. So it has two benefits. One is that it generates the spiritual punyam. It also does this vikshepa nivrittihi. The second thing that we talked about, vikshepa, the second impurity of the mind, it helps in addressing, countering, removing that. So one gets chitta ekagrata. One gets this single pointedness of the mind. One gets shama, dhamma, uparama, and samadhanam. These qualifications come. Therefore, this jnana yogyata one gets. And this spiritual punyam that one gets, it creates certain spiritual opportunities also. It does this, it is an adrishtam, it cannot be seen. And similarly, there are obstacles that are adrishtam, obstacles that cannot be seen. One may not know why one is not making spiritual progress. That is because there may be adrishta obstacles. So this spiritual punyam that gets generated counters the adrishta obstacles. And therefore, when the adrishta obstacles, adrishta pratibandha nivrittihi, when the adrishta obstacles are removed, it creates the spiritual opportunity also. When suddenly finds that earlier the areas in which one was struggling, they begin to open up. One finds a guru, for example, one starts to do shravanam, and then if one was not understanding what the guru is saying, one starts to understand that also. So Upasana has all of these benefits. So it contributes to the spiritual capability, and it also contributes to creating the spiritual opportunities. So with this, I will conclude the discussion on Upasana. And then there is more on meditation that we'll discuss when we come to Nididhyasanam. And I'm hoping that we will be able to do some meditation even during our classes also, as we move on. So with this, I'll conclude today. We'll take up in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Any comments? Yes, Vishwanathanji?
Yeah. Very important topic we have discussed on the preparatory of our mind towards the spiritual progress. My question here today is, all the steps you said, 5 steps or 6 steps you told us today, asanas, pranayamam, pratyahara, dharana and dhyanam. So if we do the sandhya vandanam, which is a nitya karmanushtanam, and probably all these things, I think we can adopt, or we being adopted in this whole process, if I'm not mistaken. Only thing is, we don't have a focus when you do the sandhya vandanam, and then we are not we are doing pranayamam automatically in the entire process. Asanas already there.
Yes.
Pratyahara also there when you focus on removing the sense organs and focus inward.
Yes.
Upasana also there. Manasam, Vachikam, Papam, whatever you said.
It's complete.
So according to me, that's what even Acharyas repeat as Rabbi, you do Sandhyavandanam clearly daily with this focus, probably you can spiritually grow.
Yes, yes. Sandhya Vandanam is an extremely powerful sadhana
Yes.
if it is done properly. See, these days,
Mm.
a lot of what has happened is that people, because and especially when people start, when one starts as a child, it is understandable because the child's mind is all over the place at that point. So you would have seen that many children actually finish it off quickly and run away, etc.
Correct.
And that we give a certain leeway at that point because it's a child after all, right? But once one realizes these benefits, then one can start doing the same thing. See, earlier one may have done it casually and all that, or done it because it is a nitya karma, I have to do it. But once one sees these benefits, one can do it with some extra shraddha and all of these disciplines incorporated, then it becomes even more efficacious.
Fantastic.
So it is a wonderful sadhana. And for those who are initiated, they can continue, they can continue to do whatever they're doing with all of these extra sensitivities brought in. And for those who are not doing it, that's something they can start on. And then for those who are not initiated, for them equally there is Manasa Puja and all of this that is available. That, if done with Shraddha, can provide very similar benefits. And therefore, one has to try to incorporate Upasana somehow in one's life. That is the message.
Okay. The second question, subset of this question is,
Yes.
if I do this sincerely, effectively, the efficacy, what you have said, maybe getting the benefit for me to grow spiritually and spiritual punyam. And you also said that Panchamaha Yajnam,
Yes.
one is the Deva Puja, it means
Hmm.
offering and daily puja. If I do this and if I don't do Deva Puja, so will it have any counter effect on my progress?
Well, ideally, one has to, after one does one Sandhya Vandanam,
Mm-hmm.
there is puja also, that is a Nitya Karma.
Oh,
So some puja has to be there where one does some worship. And if one doesn't have the time, it can be something simple also. It doesn't have to be elaborate.
and then like
But
for
one
example, Deva Puja we do with Rudram Chamakam and Vigraham we perform honey offering the milk and all. If it is not there, even Manasam we are probably chanting Vishnu Sahasranamam and offering some prasadam to the deity. That's also sufficient.
something where one has this bhavana, where one brings in Ishvara and does this required puja, something simple also, that
Mm.
if one incorporates, then that is wonderful.
Yeah. So last question on the
Yeah.
spiritual progress when we are into that meditation process, the last leg. Uh, uh, do we mean to say that we need to come out of these worldly affairs, what's happening in and around to us on a daily basis, or I don't have the clarity still. So worldly affairs again, sense organs towards worldly objects, it will go. So to control this, do we have to withdraw entirely from the worldly affairs, what is happening around?
So basically, that is why the lifestyle of karma yoga is there.
Hmm.
See, in fact, when one is in the grihastha ashrama,
Hmm.
and one has these responsibilities to the family and all that, and for
Hmm.
that, if one is required to earn a livelihood, all that is comes under one's duties. So that
Hmm.
also has to be done. But all
Okay.
we are saying is that should be done with an attitude of karma yoga, so that one is able to maintain the samatva.
Okay. And fantastic. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Um, Rangarajanji, you have a question?
In the process of meditation,
Yeah.
mentioned that you are the meditation. Clarification, please.
So, sorry, can you repeat that question once more? I'm not sure I got it.
In the process of meditation,
Yes.
they mentioned that you are the meditation.
Uh, You are the meditation, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure where, in what context I might have said that. Perhaps there was some, slip of the tongue or something. But basically, one thing I did mention is that the mind takes the color of the mind is like a cloth, and it takes the color of the objects in which it is dipped. And therefore, this sensory discipline is also something that is important. Was that the context, or?
No, sorry, but you have not told it, but I heard it elsewhere. So
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. See, finally, I mean, that can be explained. We have not come to the Nididhyasanam topic yet.
Okay.
But in Nididhyasanam, the meditation is done on the meditator. The you who are meditating, the meditation is done on the meditator itself. That is what is Nididhyasanam, who I am.
Okay.
So when we come to that, I think the quote that you mentioned might be more applicable. But that topic we will discuss in more detail when we come to the Nididhyasanam topic. That is the second type of meditation that is done after Shravanam and after there is rise of Jnanam. Then one does this meditation on the meditator, which is Nididhyasana.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I feel
yes. Rama, you have a comment?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Somebody else was also speaking at the same time. No, I wanted to add to, I think it was Vishwanathanji's question that,
yes.
So the best example we can have is Ramana Maharishi and Arjuna, right? Ramana Maharishi being a saint or my realized person. When somebody went and asked him, what do you think about the war with the British and the Indian army going on? He asked, what war? What's happening? He can say that because he's already realized and he's in that sannyasa mode. But as Krishna tells Arjuna cannot do that because he's in the transactional world. He has to follow his dharma and do that. And Arjuna's case is what applies to all of us. We are all in the transactional world. We have to do our fighting or whatever we have to do based on our whatever duty calls or dharma calls. So there is no escaping from that. The second point I wanted to make was whether it's Sandhya Vandanam or the puja that we are doing, for the most part, growing up, we were only doing it from the point of, I'll be honest, I'll say about myself, Kadavale, please, nalla mark or no, and the madri edo, something like that. I should get good scores in my exams, something like that. Slowly, that focus should go away, and it cannot be the same thing over and over again about I should get good marks and then I should get good job. Those are all required. You need them. You should ask for them, but you should ask them in the way that that job or that good mark or something is a stepping stone in your spiritual path. And hopefully, if I get a good job and settle down, my mind will be calm and I can focus on my spiritual growth. That should be the mindset of why you are asking that better job or a promotion or something, or winning the lottery, for example, or something like that. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Sure.
Yeah.
So basically, the movement from sakama karma to nishkama karma attitude.
Yeah. And not only that, what you said, no? Even in these prayers, whatever I want to get married to a good person or I want to go abroad. So the Ishvara Praptam is very important, whatever you said. You do your duty, make an effort, and result is not in our hand. Whatever you get it, I think you should accept what you said, Guruji.
Sure. Prasada buddhi.
Prasada buddhi. So whatever you get, even if you don't get it, you should accept it. Is maybe because of your past karmas is resulting into my failure.
Yes. As
Yeah.
we said, basically accepting it without any judgment or negative reactions.
Correct.
That would come under prasada bhakti.
Correct. Thank you. It's a wonderful day, sir, today. Good input. Thank you. Namaskar.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.